Games Workshop has nowhere to go. Agree or disagree? Fritz, what do you mean by that statement? Let's explore that idea. And as passionate as we are about Games Workshop, passionate as we are about Warhammer 40,000, exploring the Grimdark, it's natural to ask, how are things going to evolve? And we want to see Games Workshop, personally, I feel I want to see Games Workshop continue to be innovative, as opposed to, if things start to stagnate, doubling down on just what works and farm that for as much money as they can. And around 5th edition, midway to the end of 40K 5th edition, if you were playing back then, it was very much that. I won't say GW was in trouble. It's not like they were going to go out of business, but the hobby and the model line started to stagnate. You saw certain aspects being completely dropped, the specialist games at the time, what we now call the boxed board games, and other miniature systems were slowly creeping up. And Games Workshop turned that around, became innovative, continued to be innovative, and move forward. And this got me thinking, back in the day when Tau came out. Now, at that point in 40K, you had Marines versus bad guy Marines. So essentially Goth Marines versus Spiky Marines. You had Imperial Guard. You had Tyranids. You had Space Bugs because they were cashing in from the Aliens phase in the late 90s. And when they released Tau, and the Tau line still looks fantastic to this day, but that was such a different contrast from the Grimdark, where Tau was like, wow, I mean, that innovation to start seeing and playing against Tau was so bold. It was so bold. And of course, the Tau fit in very, very nicely into the 40K lore. So what new army has come out since? Well, we did get Mechanicus, and Mechanicus was very bold in terms of pushing the design and what the molds and models of GW can do. We see a lot of influence from Age of Sigmar, a lot of swooping pieces, a lot of dynamic pieces. Instead of just a static miniature, there's motion that's implied. Mechanicus looks absolutely fantastic. Perhaps it was an example of the tech and tools catching up with the vision. But where does it go from here? Because if you look at it, there's no denying that Marines sell. And that's why they doubled down on Primaris, and everything's Primaris this and Primaris that. Mini Marines are gone. And that's a sure bet. And the kits and the models look fantastic. That's a license to print money. But if I look at a system, there are a lot of 40K armies to pick from and supporting that range. How much of that is really played? And that's not even getting into chapters and sub-chapters of Space Marines, Dark Angels, Space Wolves, Blood Angels, Grey Knights. I would consider them a chapter of Space Marines, or maybe you just think of them as psychers that happen to wear power armor. But from that point of view, if we look at GW, just 40K right now, compared to other miniature systems, there's a lot of factions, there's a lot of support, and kits and models and supplements that are coming out for them. Is the pool too diluted? I mean, we don't know from the internals. So I don't think continuing to innovate. Look, I'd love to see another 40K army. I don't know what that would be. I mean, in the comments, if you were going to see a 40K army, what would have the volume? What would have that? Sisters is a relaunch. Sisters is a continued support. What would be that like, wow, I can't believe they brought out Tau, or I can't believe they brought out Mechanicus. What would be something that is interesting to see? I see the real innovation and the things that back this up, Cursed City, the things that back this up, looking at Blackstone Fortress, taking the narrative and putting it in a hybrid board game / miniature game format, and release supplements to the core, release 5, 8, 10 supplements in the core. These things sell out like crazy. And even when they're restocked, they sell out like crazy. That I see as a little bit, in a good way for GW, deceptive, because you've got your 40K army. You love 40K. You're passionate about 40K. You've got your primary army. You've got your secondary army. You've got your third army because, hey, look, what if a friend comes over and they want to play 40K? So they need their own army even though they don't have one. So you've got that. Then you've got that army that you've been working on forever that you're going to launch some point soon, and just for whatever reason, it's work in progress. It's on your hobby bench. I'm feeling you. I'm right there with you. That's a lot of 40K. So if Games Workshop says, hey, buy this army, this new army, you can say, well, look, I've got 2 armies. I've got a secret friend army. I've got another army I'm working on. But if they say, hey, look, here's this self-contained miniature board game system in the Grim Dark, just buy the board game. That's it. There's nothing else to buy. A couple of supplements here and there. All of a sudden, you're like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll buy that Grim Dark and I'll play it. Or Age of Sigmar. I'll buy that Vampire Counts reboot, Cursed City type thing. And that's where I see innovation, where I'd love to see Games Workshop. And I know they're doing this with their skirmish games, but I'd love to see that with the board game titles where they have seasons, or they just continually support it. Not necessarily this bouncing around back and forth between 40K and Age of Sigmar. Run both game lines, run both box sets, and continue to sell the core and continue to sell the supplements. And in a way, it's like buying into a 40K army, but you don't really know that you're buying into a 40K army until you check the statement at the end of the month and you're like, I just thought I was buying into a board game. That's the innovation. The irony being 5th edition, they dropped all of the specialist games and now they've rebranded them and launched them and done that successfully. That's some very, very interesting innovation, and that's what I would love to see innovating ahead. All right, in the comments, putting cash grabs aside, being a focused toy company selling miniatures, what would be that innovation? What would be that bold step? Or what area, in your opinion, is Games Workshop not tapping to bring to the table?